The quantum anomaly appeared without warning in the Cetus arm of the galaxy, a writhing mass of distorted space-time that defied the laws of physics. At first, it was merely a scientific curiosity, a phenomenon that drew researchers from across the galactic assembly to study its peculiar properties. But within months, the terrible truth became clear. It was growing, consuming everything in its path, and no known force could stop it. In the grand chamber of the Galactic Assembly, Supreme Counselor Volthera's crystalline form sparkled under the artificial lights as she addressed the emergency session. Representatives from over 300 species filled the tiered seats, their varied forms creating a living tapestry of evolutionary diversity. The atmosphere was heavy with fear and resignation. "The calculations are conclusive," Volthera announced, her voice resonating through the chamber. "The anomaly will reach the Proxima system within 2 standard cycles, followed by the Arcturus cluster and the Orion spiral. Current projections indicate that 47 inhabited worlds lie in its path. We have exhausted all known scientific solutions." Dr. Sarah Chen, Earth's chief representative, sat forward in her seat, her dark eyes narrowing as she studied the holographic projection floating above the chamber center. The anomaly pulsed an angry red, its tentacles of warped space reaching out like a hungry beast. "With all due respect, Supreme Counselor," Sarah stood, her voice clear and steady. "Has the Assembly considered the theoretical work from the Einstein-Rosen Institute on Earth? Our quantum engineers believe—" "Ah yes, the humans," interrupted Delegate Zixtal, his gelatinous form quivering with what passed for amusement among his species. "Always so eager to solve problems beyond their understanding. Your species has barely mastered interstellar travel. What could you possibly offer that our civilizations, with millennia of scientific advancement, haven't already tried?" Sarah refused to be baited by the dismissive tone. "We offer a different perspective. The Institute's research suggests the anomaly isn't just consuming space. It's rewriting quantum states. If we cold—" "The Assembly has reviewed Earth's proposals," Volthera cut in, her crystalline features impossible to read. "They were deemed too theoretical and far too risky. The energy requirements alone would drain multiple star systems. And doing nothing isn't risky," Sarah challenged, earning murmurs of disapproval from the older members. "Billions will die if we don't act." "The Assembly's decision is final." Volthera's tone grew cold. "We will focus our resources on evacuating what worlds we can. The rest," she paused, "will be remembered." Sarah stood there for a moment, her hands clenched at her sides. Around her, the other representatives were already beginning to disperse, accepting the death sentence passed on billions of their fellow beings with practiced diplomatic resignation. She thought of the images she'd seen from the outer colonies: children playing in parks, farmers tending their fields, scientists in their labs, all going about their lives unaware that their governing bodies had just abandoned them to their fate. Back in the Earth Embassy, Sarah paced her office, the holographic displays around her showing the latest data on the anomaly's expansion. Her assistant, Tom Rivera, watched her with concern. "They're really just giving up?" he asked, disbelief evident in his voice. Sarah stopped pacing and turned to face the window, looking out at the artificial landscape of the assembly world. "They're afraid, Tom. The anomaly defies everything they thought they knew about physics. And fear—" She turned back, a determined glint in her eye. "Fear makes people choose safety over courage." She moved to her desk and activated the quantum comlink. "Get me Admiral Helena Wong at Fleet Command and contact the Einstein-Rosen Institute. I want Dr. Patel and his entire team on standby." Tom's eyes widened. "You're not seriously considering—" "The Assembly won't help." "Fine. Then humanity will do it ourselves." Sarah's fingers flew over the holographic interface. "We're not going to sit back and watch billions die because it's the convenient choice." "The Assembly will oppose this," Tom warned. "They could revoke Earth's membership, impose sanctions. Then they can add it to the list of things we're too young and primitive to understand." Sarah replied, a grim smile playing at her lips. Sometimes being the new kids on the block has its advantages. We haven't learned to be cynical yet. The quantum comm crackled to life, and Admiral Wong's holographic form appeared above Sarah's desk. The veteran officer took one look at Sarah's expression and sighed. I know that look, Shen. What impossible thing are we about to attempt? How would you like to save a few dozen worlds and prove the old guard wrong in the process? Sarah asked, already pulling up the Institute's theoretical models. Wong's hologram leaned forward, interest sparking in her eyes. On listening, as Sarah laid out the beginnings of their desperate plan, she could feel the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. Humanity had always been underestimated by the Galactic Assembly, seen as upstart primitives barely out of their planetary cradle. But maybe that was exactly what the galaxy needed right now, a species that still believed impossible things could be done, simply because they hadn't been around long enough to learn otherwise. The quantum anomaly continued its inexorable expansion across space, unaware that the youngest spacefaring race had just decided to stand against it. In the next few weeks, the galaxy would learn exactly what humans were capable of when failure wasn't an option. Against all odds, the Einstein-Rosen Institute buzzed with activity as scientists from across Earth's colonies worked around the clock. Holographic displays filled every available space, showing complex quantum calculations and real-time data from the anomaly. Dr. Vikram Patel, his silver hair disheveled from too many hours bent over quantum matrices, stood at the center of the controlled chaos. The anomaly isn't just consuming space, he explained to the assembled team leaders, pointing to a particularly complex set of equations. It's creating a cascade of quantum decoherence events. Reality itself is unraveling at the edges. Admiral Wong, attending via hologram, frowned. In English, Doctor. Imagine reality as a tapestry. Sarah Chen cut in, having spent weeks translating between scientific and military terminology. The anomaly isn't just cutting holes in it, it's pulling threads loose, causing the whole thing to unravel. Can we stop it? Wong asked. We think so, Vikram replied, bringing up a new simulation. But we'll need to create a quantum stabilization field on a scale never before attempted. The energy requirements alone are impossible, came a new voice. Ambassador Xenri of the Arcturus Consensus strode into the room, their bioluminescent skin pulsing with disapproval. Which is what we've been trying to tell you. Sarah stepped forward. Ambassador, this is a restricted facility. The Assembly sent me to talk sense into you. Xenri interrupted. Your species' determination is admirable, but this is foolishness. The energy required for your stabilization field would drain multiple star systems. You'll destroy as many worlds as you're trying to save. Not if we use the quantum tap, Vikram said quietly. The room fell silent. Even Xenri's bioluminescence dimmed slightly. The quantum tap is theoretical, they said finally. No one has ever successfully accessed zero-point energy on that scale. No one's ever tried, Sarah countered. The Assembly's been so focused on what can't be done, they never stopped to ask what could be done differently. Before Xenri could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. One of the younger scientists, Maya Patel, Vikram's daughter, rushed to a central display. The anomaly's acceleration is increasing. It's shifting course. The Proxima system isn't first anymore. Then what is? Wong demanded. Maya's face paled. The Arcturus Consensus. Their homeworld has less than one standard cycle before contact. Xenri's bioluminescence flared with shock and fear. That's not possible. The calculations were based on assuming the anomaly followed physical laws as we understand them, Vikram finished. It doesn't. And now your people are first in line. The alien ambassador stood frozen, their light patterns shifting rapidly through colors humans couldn't even name. When they spoke again, their voice was different. How long until your quantum tap is ready? 3 weeks, minimum, Maya answered. We'd need to construct quantum receivers across multiple systems, calibrate the energy flow. My people don't have 3 weeks. No, Sarah agreed. They don't. Which is why we started building the receivers 2 weeks ago. Everyone turned to stare at her. Admiral Wong's hologram flickered as she leaned forward. You what? I had a feeling the assembly wouldn't listen until it was their own worlds at risk. Sarah explained. So while we were arguing with them, Earth's engineering corps has been quietly deploying receivers across the predicted impact zones. We're about 60% complete. Zenri's skin rippled with complex emotions. You had no authority. No, Sarah cut them off. We didn't. We did it anyway. Because that's what humans do when lives are at stake. We act. Now you can report us to the assembly, have us sanctioned, even expelled. Or you can help us finish the grid in time to save your people. Your choice. The silence stretched for a long moment. Finally, Zenri's colors settled into a determined pattern. What do you need? The next 2 weeks were a blur of activity. With the Arcturus consensus now secretly supporting them, Earth's teams gained access to advanced manufacturing capabilities they'd never had before. Quantum receivers sprouted across space like metallic flowers, each one designed to channel impossible amounts of energy. But problems arose almost immediately. 3 receivers failed during testing, overloaded by even small power transfers. A saboteur, presumably from one of the species opposed to the project, destroyed a key manufacturing facility, and the anomaly continued to accelerate, defying every prediction. In her temporary quarters at the Institute, Sarah reviewed the latest reports with growing concern. They were behind schedule, over budget, and running out of time. A soft chime announced a visitor. Come in, she called, not looking up from her displays. Maya Patil entered, carrying fresh data crystals. Latest simulations, she said, setting them down. Dad thinks he's found a way to increase power flow efficiency by 12%. We need 20 to hit the minimum threshold. I know. Maya hesitated. There might be a way, but it's risky. Sarah finally looked up. How risky? The quantum tap creates a bridge between normal space and zero-point energy, Maya explained. The safety protocols prevent too much energy from flowing at once. If we remove them, the tap could draw enough power to work, Sarah finished, or tear a hole in reality bigger than the anomaly. Yeah, Maya met her eyes. But if we don't try something, billions die anyway. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, thinking of all the species counting on them, of the assembly's warnings, of Earth's reputation if they failed. Finally, she reached for her comm unit. Get me Admiral Wong, she said. And your father. It's time to roll the dice. The human element. The quantum tap facility hung in space like a giant metallic spider web, its delicate strands stretching across thousands of kilometers. At its heart, a sphere of dark energy containment fields pulsed with barely restrained power. Dr. Vikram Patel stood at the main control center, his weathered hands hovering over the quantum interface as he made minute adjustments to the energy flow. Power levels at 30% and holding, Maya reported, her eyes fixed on the readings. Quantum coherence stable. Around them, a mixed crew of humans and Arcturians worked in tense silence. The facility represented the largest cooperative engineering project ever attempted between their species, built in a fraction of the normal time. Evidence of that haste showed in the exposed conduits and temporary patches that covered much of the structure. Sarah Chen watched from the observatory deck, accompanied by Admiral Wong and Ambassador Zenri. The anomaly was visible from here, a writhing mass of distorted space that seemed to devour light itself. We're receiving reports from the outer colonies, Wong said quietly. The evacuation isn't going well. There's panic, riots in some places. They know we're running out of time. The assembly has finally agreed to assist with evacuations. Zenri added, their skin pulsing with troubled colors. But their estimates suggest we can only save 20% of the threatened populations. Sarah's hands clenched on the railing. That won't be necessary. We're going to stop this thing. Your confidence is admirable, Senri said. But even with the safety protocols disabled, the model suggest. A sudden alarm cut through the air. Maya's voice came over the comm, tense but controlled. We're detecting quantum fluctuations in the tap. The bridge is becoming unstable. Vikram's response was immediate. Reduce power to 20%. Reinforce the containment fields. If we reduce power now, we lose our chance to generate a strong enough field, Sarah argued, moving toward the control center. If we don't, we could lose the entire facility, Vikram countered. The quantum forces we're dealing with are exactly what we need. A new voice interrupted. Everyone turned to see Tom Rivera, Sarah's assistant, rushing into the control center with a data crystal. I've been analyzing the anomaly's pattern. It's not random. He plugged the crystal into a nearby terminal, and a new set of holographic displays sprang to life. Look at the quantum signature. It's not just decoherence. It's a signal. Maya leaned forward, her eyes widening. These patterns, they're self-repeating, almost like someone's trying to communicate, Tom finished. The anomaly isn't a natural phenomenon. It's artificial. The revelation hit the room like a physical force. Sarah was the first to recover. Can we respond? Maybe, Tom said, but we'd need to match its quantum frequency exactly. One mistake, and we could accelerate the decoherence instead of stopping it. The tap, Vikram said suddenly. If we modify the containment field harmonics, we could use it to generate a matching signal. The power requirements would be even higher than before, Maya warned. We'd have to run at maximum capacity, maybe even beyond it. Then that's what we'll do, Sarah decided. She turned to Admiral Wong. Get every ship we have in position to evacuate the facility if this goes wrong. Ambassador Xenri, we need your people's expertise in quantum harmonics. The Arcturian's skin flickered with determination. You shall have it. For the next 12 hours, the combined teams worked feverishly to modify the quantum tap. Traditional barriers between species broke down as survival instinct and shared purpose overcame centuries of diplomatic distance. Humans worked alongside aliens, each contributing their unique perspectives and abilities. When everything was ready, Vikram took his position at the main control interface. Maya stood beside him, while Sarah, Wong, and Senri watched from the command center. Power levels at maximum, Maya announced. Containment fields at 110% of rated capacity. Quantum harmonics aligned. An Arcturian technician added. Signal pattern loaded. Vikram took a deep breath. Beginning transmission in 3, 2, 1. The quantum tap flared to life, its web-like structure blazing with energy. The sphere at its center became a miniature sun of pure quantum potential. Warning alarms screamed as power levels soared past safety limits. Containment fields holding, Maya reported, her voice tight. Barely. Signal transmitting, Tom called out. No response yet. Seconds stretched into minutes as the facility groaned under the strain. Then, suddenly, the anomaly changed. Its chaotic movements became more ordered, its energy patterns shifting to match the tap's output. We're getting something, Tom said excitedly. The quantum patterns are aligning. It's. A burst of energy from the anomaly washed over the facility, overwhelming sensors and causing every piece of quantum-sensitive equipment to activate at once. When the surge passed, a new pattern hung in space before them, constructed from pure quantum probability. It was a message. Breaking point. The quantum patterns shifted and coalesced, forming symbols that seemed to twist in and out of reality itself. Maya's fingers flew across the interface as she worked to stabilize the transmission. It's some kind of mathematical sequence, she said, her voice filled with wonder. But the complexity. It's like nothing I've ever seen. Vikram studied the patterns intently. The base mathematics are familiar, but the application. He turned to Xenri. Has the Arcturus consensus ever encountered anything like this? The ambassador's skin rippled with confusion. No, This is beyond even our oldest records. I think I understand, Tom said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. The young assistant had been working furiously at his terminal, correlating data patterns. It's not just a message, it's a cry for help. He brought up a new display, showing the mathematical sequence broken down into its component parts. These patterns, they're degrading. Like a signal that's been repeating for so long it's starting to break down. How long? Sarah asked. Tom's face was grim, based on the rate of quantum decay. Millions of years, at least. The implications stunned everyone into silence. Whatever had created the anomaly was ancient beyond comprehension, a civilization that might have been old when humanity's ancestors were still learning to use tools. The facility shuddered as another energy surge hit them. Warning lights flashed across every console. Containment fields at critical levels, Maya reported. The power drain is increasing exponentially. Can we maintain the connection? Sarah asked. Vikram shook his head, not without burning out the entire facility. We need to power down. Wait, Tom interrupted. There's more to the message. It's showing us something. New patterns emerged from the quantum noise, forming what looked like technical specifications. Complex diagrams and equations filled the air around them. It's showing us how to save them, Maya whispered. But this can't be right. These power requirements would drain a star, Vikram finished, his face pale. They're not just asking for help. They're asking us to sacrifice our own sun to power the rescue attempt. The control room erupted in shocked exclamations. Ambassador Xendry's skin turned almost black with horror. Impossible. No civilization would even consider. How many stars are in the path of the anomaly? Sarah's quiet question cut through the chaos. Admiral Wong checked her displays. At current trajectory, over 1,000 inhabited systems would be affected within the next standard year. And how many lives is that? Billions, Wong answered. Maybe trillions. Sarah straightened, her decision already made. Then we have to try. Chen, Wong warned. If we fail, we lose Earth. Everything. Everyone. And if we do nothing, we lose everything anyway. Sarah countered. Just more slowly, and with the knowledge that we could have tried to stop it. The facility rocked with another energy surge. Conduits burst, spraying coolant into the air. We need to decide now, Maya called out. The containment fields won't hold much longer. Sarah looked around the control room, at the faces of humans and aliens alike, all united in this moment of crisis. We're not just deciding for Earth, she said. We're deciding for every species that will be affected by this. Our sun for 1 trillion lives. That's the equation. The Assembly will never approve, Henry said, but their tone was uncertain. Then we don't ask them. Sarah replied. We do what's right because it's right. That's what humanity has always done. Admiral Wong's hologram flickered as she stood straighter. I'll position the fleet to begin solar energy collection. But Sarah, someone will have to guide the energy flow manually. The calculations are too complex for AI, and the radiation levels would be fatal, Vikram finished. Whoever does it won't survive. Before anyone could speak, Maya stepped forward. I'll do it. No, Vikram's voice cracked. Maya, you can't. Dad, she said gently, I understand the math better than anyone except you. And you need to coordinate from here, she smiled. Besides, isn't this what humans do? Stand up when everyone else steps back. The facility shuddered again, more violently this time. Systems were beginning to fail across the board. They were out of time. Sarah looked at Maya, seeing not just a brilliant young scientist, but the very essence of what made humanity different from the older races. The willingness to sacrifice everything for others, even those they'd never met. Begin the preparations, she ordered, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. We have a civilization to save. Legacy. The sun dimmed over Earth as massive energy collectors positioned themselves around its corona. The sky took on an eerie twilight hue, and temperatures began to drop. In cities across the planet, humans gathered in crowds to watch their star give up its power to save countless unknown lives. Maya Patel sat in the quantum guidance chamber, surrounded by holographic interfaces showing the complex energy flows she would need to manage. The chamber's walls were already growing warm from the radiation that would eventually claim her life. "All systems ready," she reported, her voice calm despite everything. Beginning primary sequence. In the main control room, Vikram watched his daughter's vital signs on a separate display, his hands trembling slightly as he coordinated the power collection. Sarah stood beside him, while Admiral Wong's hologram monitored the fleet's positions and Ambassador Xenri coordinated with the Arcturus ships providing support. "First stage energy collection beginning," Wong announced. 20% of solar output being redirected. The facility hummed with power unlike anything ever harnessed before. In the quantum guidance chamber, Maya's fingers danced across the interfaces, weaving together streams of energy with mathematical precision. "We're receiving a response," Tom called out suddenly. "The anomaly. It's changing." The writhing mass of quantum distortion began to pulse in rhythm with their energy transmission. Within its depths, something vast and ancient stirred. Quantum coherence achieving critical threshold. Maya reported, sweat beading on her forehead as radiation levels climbed. Starting final sequence. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. "Multiple ships dropping out of FTL," Wong announced. "It's the assembly fleet." The quantum comm crackled to life, and Supreme Counselor Volthera's image appeared. "This unauthorized action stops now," she commanded. "You risk destroying your own star system and potentially causing a cascade reaction that could save trillions of lives." Sarah interrupted. "Look at your sensors, Counselor. Really look. We're not destroying anything. We're proving that sometimes the impossible just takes a little courage." As if to emphasize her words, the anomaly's patterns shifted dramatically. Where before there had been chaos, now structure emerged. Within its quantum depths, ghostly images began to appear, cities, worlds, entire civilizations preserved in a state of quantum suspension. "By all the ancient stars," Shenri whispered, their skin pulsing with colors of awe. They weren't trying to destroy. They were trying to preserve. Energy transfer at 60%. Maya's voice was strained now, her vital signs showing the increasing toll of radiation exposure. Beginning final phase. The assembly ships held position, their weapons powered but not firing, as humanity attempted what their older, supposedly wiser civilizations had deemed impossible. The sun's energy flowed through the quantum tap, guided by Maya's dying hands, reaching across space to touch the ancient quantum prison. And then something miraculous happened. The anomaly began to unravel, not in chaos, but in harmony. The quantum patterns that had threatened to destroy worlds instead began to release their preserved contents. Ships, cities, and entire planetary populations frozen in time for millions of years began to emerge, perfectly preserved. "It's working," Tom breathed. "They're coming back." In the quantum guidance chamber, Maya smiled even as her strength faded. "Dad," she called weakly, "are you seeing this?" "I see it, Beta," Vikram replied, tears streaming down his face. "You did it. You saved them all." The rescue took hours, during which Earth's sun dimmed to a fraction of its normal output. But as the last of the preserved civilizations emerged, the ancient quantum machinery began to collapse in on itself, releasing the stored solar energy back to its source. Earth's sun blazed back to life, its power restored. Maya Patel did not live to see the sun return to full strength, but her sacrifice was witnessed by representatives of civilizations so ancient they had been legend before humanity's ancestors walked upright. In the aftermath, as diplomatic relations were established with races that had been sleeping since before Earth formed, the Galactic Assembly underwent profound changes. The age of a civilization, they had learned, was not always the measure of its wisdom. Years later, in the great chamber where the crisis had begun, A new memorial was unveiled. It showed a young human woman guiding the light of a star to save those that most had deemed beyond saving. The inscription, written in every known language of the galaxy, read simply, "To Maya Patel and to humanity, who taught the galaxy that courage knows no age, and that the right choice is worth any price." Sarah Chen, now Earth's senior ambassador, stood before the memorial long after the ceremony ended. Ambassador Xenri joined her, their skin glowing with gentle colors of remembrance. "The newly awakened ones ask many questions about humans," Xenri said softly. "They cannot understand how such a young species could succeed where the oldest failed." Sarah smiled, touching the memorial's base gently. "Tell them it's because we're too young to know what's impossible, and old enough to do it anyway." Above them, the stars shone in a galaxy forever changed by humanity's refusal to accept the impossible. Among those stars, countless civilizations now lived, loved, and dreamed, all because one young species had dared to believe that hope was worth any price, and that the measure of a civilization was not in its age, but in its heart.